Sky Woods had spent weeks planning her husband's surprise 40th birthday party, meticulously coordinating with his oldest friends. She thought she knew every detail of his life, every late night at the office, every quick trip to the hardware store. But that Thursday evening, while searching for an old photo album in the attic, her hand brushed against a loose floorboard. Beneath it, she found a small, locked wooden box. The key, she later discovered, was hidden inside Mark's favorite golf bag. What was inside that box would shatter the illusion of their 15-year marriage, revealing a betrayal so profound it would leave her questioning everything she ever believed about the man she loved. This is the story of how Sky Woods discovered her husband's secret second life and the devastating aftermath. But before we proceed further into the details of this story, consider subscribing to this channel so you won't miss out of stories like this. Let's go. October 17th, 2023. A crisp autumn Tuesday. Sky Woods, 38, meticulously reviewed the household budget spreadsheet on her laptop. The late afternoon sun, a gentle amber, filtered through the large bay window of their suburban home in Oak Brook, Illinois. Dust motes danced in the light, a peaceful domestic tableau that had been the backdrop to her life for 15 years. Her auburn hair, usually pulled back neatly, had a few strands escaping, framing a face etched with a familiar, contented focus. She was tracing the projected expenses for the upcoming holiday season, a task she approached with the same quiet diligence she applied to managing their lives. Mark, her husband of 16 years, was, according to his latest text, stuck in a critical client meeting that had run over, a frequent occurrence for a regional sales manager. Their 14-year-old daughter, Emily, was at a friend's house, a welcome reprieve from the subtle, almost imperceptible tension that had begun to coil in their home over the past year. Sky adjusted her reading glasses, her slender fingers tapping a rhythm on the polished oak desk. Everything seemed to be in order, a testament to their shared planning and Mark's consistent, if sometimes absent, provision. Yet, a nagging unease, like a phantom limb, had begun to surface more frequently. It started small. Mark's phone, once an open book, was now perpetually on silent, swiped face down, or tucked away in his briefcase. His late nights were more frequent, his explanations vague, punctuated by a subtle defensiveness that felt alien to the man she'd married in college. She'd dismissed it as work stress, the demands of climbing the corporate ladder he'd always aspired to. But then came the credit card statement in August, a cryptic charge for a boutique hotel in downtown Chicago, a city he rarely visited for leisure. He'd brushed it off as a necessary overnight for a conference she couldn't find any record of online. The unease solidified into a cold knot in her stomach. She started noticing small things, a faint, unfamiliar floral scent on his jacket, a too-quick change of the subject when she asked about his day, a peculiar stiffness in his posture when he thought she wasn't looking. One evening, while searching for an old tax document in his home office, a space she usually respected as his sanctuary, her hand brushed against a loose floorboard beneath his desk. Curiosity, a trait she usually reserved for solving the Sunday crossword, pricked at her. She lifted it. Beneath lay a small, velvet-lined box. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. Inside, nestled against the dark fabric, was a delicate silver locket, engraved with initials that were not hers. O.V. She didn't recognize them. The air in the room seemed to thicken, stealing her breath. This wasn't just a misplaced gift. It felt like a key, unlocking a door she hadn't even known existed, a door leading to a terrifying unknown landscape. The woman's name, Olivia Vance, swam into her consciousness, a name she vaguely recalled Mark mentioning once. A colleague from a recent acquisition, or so he'd said, saw in the pieces sharp and jagged, began to fit together with horrifying clarity. The hushed phone calls, the unexplained absences, the subtle emotional distance, they weren't signs of stress, they were signs of a life lived elsewhere, with someone else. The practical, efficient manager of finances felt her world tilting on its axis. The carefully constructed edifice of their marriage, built on trust and shared dreams, was crumbling, brick by painstaking brick, and she was standing in the ruins, the chill of betrayal seeping into her bones. The autumn sunlight, moments before warm and comforting, now seemed harsh, exposing the rot beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect life. Her hands, usually steady, trembled as she placed the locket back, the velvet seeming to cling to her fingertips like a stain. The quiet hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, a familiar, comforting sound, now felt like a mocking echo of the domestic tranquility that was rapidly dissolving. The discovery of the locket was not an endpoint, but a brutal, agonizing beginning. For days, Skywoods moved through her meticulously managed life like a ghost. The house, once her sanctuary, now felt like a gilded cage, filled with the silent accusations of Mark's possessions and the echoes of their shared past. Emily, her bright 14-year-old, sensed the shift. The girl, gangly and still growing into herself, her once bright hazel eyes now shadowed with confusion and distress, would watch her mother with a quiet anxiety. She'd retreat into her hoodies, long dark hair falling like a curtain, observing the strained silences at the dinner table and the forced pleasantries that masked an ocean of unspoken tension. Skye found herself scrutinizing every interaction, every word Mark uttered, searching for further proof, for the cracks in the carefully constructed edifice of his life. He remained oblivious, or perhaps expertly feigned ignorance. He'd kiss her goodbye with the same practiced ease, inquire about Emily's day with the same pleasant, if now hollow, interest. His thinning brown hair was always neatly combed, his conservative business casual attire impeccable, a testament to the external order he so desperately maintained. But Skye saw beyond the veneer now. She saw the slight paunch that spoke of sedentary habits, the way his smile didn't quite reach his sharp, intelligent eyes when he thought she was looking too closely. She began her own quiet investigation, a task that felt both abhorrent and necessary. Her meticulous financial management skills, once a source of pride, became her weapon. Late at night, after Emily was asleep and Mark was supposedly working late, she delved into their shared bank accounts, their joint credit cards, searching for anomalies. The hotel charge reappeared, linked to a different date, and then another and another, all in Chicago, always at upscale establishments. She cross-referenced these with Mark's claimed business trips, his appointment calendar, a digital repository he'd once shared freely, but now guarded with unusual possessiveness. She found discrepancies, overlaps, entire days unaccounted for. It was like piecing together a puzzle where every new piece revealed a darker, more disturbing image. One afternoon, driven by a desperate need to understand, she used a credit card number from a discarded receipt found in Mark's car, a number she'd discreetly noted weeks ago. She searched for it online, using obscure search engines, trying to find any mention of OV or Olivia Vance in connection with the hotel charges or unusual transactions. It was a needle in a haystack, a grim digital archaeology. Then a breakthrough, a cached social media profile, a private account that required a follow request. But the profile picture was enough. A striking woman, mid-30s, tall with a toned physique, sharp blue eyes, and long, sleek blonde hair, Olivia Vance. The profile, though sparse, hinted at a life of designer clothing and expensive tastes, a stark contrast to Skye's practical, comfortable style. There were subtle clues. A geotagged photo from a restaurant known for its romantic ambiance in the West Loop, dated 2 weeks after the first mysterious hotel charge. Another, a glimpse of a man's hand, his watch distinctive, resting on a table beside a wine glass. Skye recognized the watch. It was Mark's. The cold knot in her stomach tightened into a vice. The carefully compartmentalized lives Mark cultivated were colliding, and she was standing at the epicenter, the ground shifting beneath her feet. She confronted Mark, not with accusations, but with carefully worded questions, her voice unnervingly calm, a stark contrast to the tempest raging within. She presented a few of the financial discrepancies, the hotel charges. Mark's easy smile faltered. His pleasant face became strained. He deflected, his usual smooth reassurances now tinged with a subtle impatience. He spoke of stressful work periods, of needing to blow off steam, of financial prudence, But his eyes darted away, his body language betraying him. Skye saw the fear, the desperate attempt to maintain control, and it solidified her resolve. The path forward was no longer about saving the marriage. It was about uncovering the full truth, protecting Emily, and reclaiming her own shattered sense of self. The seemingly perfect life was a meticulously crafted illusion, and she was determined to see what lay beneath. The careful dance around the truth ended on a Thursday evening, April 11th, 2024. Skye had spent the previous week meticulously gathering every shred of evidence. The hotel bills, the burner phone records she'd managed to extract from a discarded SIM card found in Mark's golf bag, the damning geotagged photos, and emails detailing clandestine meetings. She'd even discreetly engaged a private investigator, a former NYPD detective named David Rossi, who confirmed her worst fears. Mark Woods had been having an ongoing affair with Olivia Vance for nearly 2 years, using company funds for lavish hotel stays and expensive gifts. The investigator's report, cold and factual, laid bare the extent of the deception, including details of Olivia Vance's own aspirations, a desire for financial security that Mark had apparently promised to provide, regardless of the cost to his existing life. Skye, now 39, sat at the head of their formal dining room table, the same table where they'd hosted countless family gatherings, holiday dinners, and birthday celebrations. The room, usually filled with the warmth of family life, felt stark and cold under the glare of the overhead chandelier. Emily, 13 now, sat beside her, her face pale, her eyes wide with the dawning, terrible understanding, as Skye explained gently but firmly, that her father had made some very serious mistakes. Mark entered the room, his usual easy smile plastered on his face, a briefcase in hand. He stopped short, sensing the gravity of the atmosphere, the unnatural stillness. Skye looked at him, her warm brown eyes, usually filled with affection, now hard and clear, devoid of any illusion. Her auburn hair was pulled back severely, her dark wash jeans and simple gray t-shirt a uniform of stark truth. "Mark," she began, her voice steady, "we need to talk. And this time, there's no deflecting, no excuses." She laid out the evidence, piece by piece. The private investigator's report, the burner phone, the hotel receipts. She spoke of the 2 years of lies, the betrayal that had fractured their family. Mark's face, usually so pleasant, began to pale. His thinning brown hair seemed to recede further as his composure crumbled. He stammered, tried to deny, to minimize, to blame the stress of work, but Skye cut him off. "Don't you dare," she said, her voice rising, the tremor she'd suppressed for months finally breaking through. "Don't you dare try to justify this. You built a second life, Mark. A life that cost us dearly, not just financially, but emotionally." Emily, sitting beside her mother, began to sob quietly, burying her face in Skye's side. The sound was a gut punch to Mark, a flicker of genuine pain crossing his face. No, but it was too late. Skye continued, her voice gaining strength. "Olivia Vance, she wanted a lifestyle you couldn't afford on your own, and you facilitated it with our money. With money meant for Emily's future. For our future." She slid a photograph across the table, a candid shot taken by the investigator. Mark and Olivia laughing, arms around each other, outside a luxury hotel. Mark flinched as if struck. The carefully constructed walls of his dual existence had not just cracked, they had completely collapsed. The confrontation, raw and agonizing, continued for hours. Mark, stripped of his pretense, confessed the affair, the financial drain, the guilt he'd compartmentalized for so long. He spoke of feeling trapped, of seeking validation, of an escape from the mundane pressures of his life. But his words offered no solace, only a confirmation of the depth of his betrayal, the deafening roar of her shattered reality. The next morning, Skye Woods moved through the motions of breakfast with a practiced, almost robotic efficiency. The smell of coffee brewing, the clatter of plates, the rustle of Emily's school uniform, all the familiar sounds of their morning routine now felt like elements of a meticulously crafted play she was forced to perform. Her brown eyes, usually soft and welcoming, were now shadowed, distant, the warmth replaced by a steely resolve that was new to her. She watched Mark across the table, his thinning brown hair neatly combed, his smile easy as he chided Emily about her late-night phone usage. He was the picture of the dependable, if slightly harried, husband and father, his mid-40s paunch softened by a comfortable lifestyle, his casual business attire, a crisp blue button-down shirt and pressed slacks, projecting an image of stable normalcy. Yet, Skye saw only the carefully constructed facade, the man who had so expertly woven a web of deceit. She remembered the college sweetheart she'd fallen for, the steady affection, the shared dreams that had seemed so solid, so real. Now that man felt like a stranger, a ghost haunting the edges of her memory. The fabricated hotel charges, the anonymous subscriptions, the damning photos on the USB drive. They replayed in her mind, each piece of evidence a shard of glass piercing her heart. She had spent the night sleepless, replaying every conversation, every shared glance, searching for the tells she had missed, the subtle signs she had so willfully ignored. The betrayal cut deeper than just infidelity. It was a betrayal of their shared history, of the foundation of their family, of the very identity she had built around being Mark's wife and Emily's mother. Her objective was clear: uncover the full extent of his deception, not for revenge, but for survival. She needed to protect Emily, to secure their future, to reclaim her own sense of self before this consuming lie eroded it completely. Mark buttered his toast, and oblivious to the seismic shift that had occurred within his wife. He spoke of a looming sales target, a potential promotion, the usual anxieties and aspirations that filled their days. Skye nodded, her voice carefully modulated, a low hum of agreement that didn't betray the tempest inside. She felt a profound detachment, as if she were watching a scene from a movie, a stranger caught in the crosshairs of someone else's drama. The challenge, she knew, would be to maintain this outward calm, to gather more evidence without alerting him, to plan her next move strategically. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth, it was about regaining control. Later that afternoon, under the guise of running errands, Skye drove to a small, discreet cafe in a neighboring town, a place Mark would never associate with her. And she had made an appointment with a private investigator, a woman named Ms. Albright, recommended by a discreet lawyer friend. The air in the cafe was thick with the scent of roasted coffee beans and pastries, a stark contrast to the tension she carried. Skye explained the situation in hushed, deliberate tones, her hands clasped tightly on the small table, her voice steady despite the tremor in her gut. She presented the USB drive, her carefully documented notes on the suspicious charges, and described Olivia Vance's profile, the marketing executive, the potential mistress. Ms. Albright, a woman in her late 50s with sharp, observant eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, listened intently, occasionally taking notes. She confirmed that Olivia Vance was indeed a real person, thus a divorced marketing executive known for her ambition and sophisticated tastes, and that she and Mark had been seen together at several high-profile events in the city over the past year, far from his supposed business dealings. The investigator's professional detachment was both a comfort and a terror. She was methodically dissecting Skye's life, turning intimate details into case files. Skye felt exposed, vulnerable, yet also strangely empowered. For the first time since discovering the truth, she wasn't just reacting, she was actively pursuing a solution. The thought of Mark's carefully guarded secret being brought into the harsh light of day was both terrifying and exhilarating. She had to know everything. How long had this been going on? What was Olivia Vance's endgame? Was Mark planning to leave them? The questions swirled, each more painful than the last. The journey ahead felt daunting, a steep, treacherous climb, but the first crucial step had been taken. The facade had cracked, and Skye was determined to see what lay beneath, no matter how ugly it might be. The relentless rain outside mirrored the storm brewing within Skye Woods. It had been 2 weeks since her discovery, 2 weeks of walking a tightrope, maintaining a semblance of normalcy for Emily, while Mark remained blissfully unaware of her investigation. She had found more evidence, thanks to Ms. Albright's discreet surveillance. Photos of Mark and Olivia Vance at a discreet restaurant downtown, their body language too intimate for mere colleagues, and a series of encrypted messages on a secondary phone Mark kept hidden in his car's glove compartment. Messages that spoke of future plans and of starting over. The depth of his deception felt like a physical weight pressing down on her chest, constricting her breath. Her objective had shifted from mere discovery to a desperate need to understand the mechanics of his secret life, to find the tangible proof that would allow her to protect her children and herself, legally and emotionally. She knew Mark meticulously managed his personal affairs, compartmentalizing his life with the precision of a surgeon. Her role as the protagonist was now about dissecting that carefully constructed compartmentalization. She needed to find what he'd hidden, not just the emotional betrayal, but the financial or legal scaffolding that supported his dual existence. One evening, while Mark was out on yet another late-night business strategy session, a phrase that now tasted like ash in Sky's mouth, she decided to search his home office more thoroughly. This time, her search was not driven by panicked curiosity, but by a cold, strategic intent. Armed with Ms. Albright's insights into Mark's habits, his need for order, his aversion to clutter, his precise routine, Sky began to systematically examine his workspace. She ran her hands along the bookshelves, tapping gently on the wood panels, listening for hollow sounds. She checked behind framed diplomas and awards, her heart pounding with each fruitless search. The air in the office was thick with the scent of old paper and Mark's faint, familiar cologne, a smell that now evoked only bitterness. She recalled a conversation from years ago, not a casual remark Mark had made about secure storage for important documents, a system he'd installed after a minor home burglary scare before Emily was born. He'd dismissed it as paranoia then, but now it felt like a significant clue. Her gaze fell upon an antique wooden globe, a decorative piece that had always sat on his desk, ostensibly gathering dust but serving as a focal point for his contemplation. It seemed too obvious, yet Mark was a creature of habit and vanity. She picked it up, turning it slowly. It felt heavier than it looked. Her fingers traced the familiar continents, the worn brass meridian. Then her thumb brushed against a tiny, almost imperceptible seam near the base, hidden by the curvature of the wood. A spark of adrenaline shot through her. Applying gentle pressure, she felt a minute click. The base of the globe, matched with its world map, swung outwards, revealing a small cylindrical cavity within. Inside, nestled in a velvet lining, was a small leather-bound journal and a single official-looking envelope sealed with wax. Her hands trembled as she reached for the journal. The first entry was dated over 3 years ago, detailing clandestine meetings with Olivia Vance, not as a recent affair, but as an ongoing entanglement that preceded her discovery by years. Mark wrote of his dissatisfaction, his feelings of being trapped, his desire for a life less ordinary, a life Olivia promised. He detailed financial maneuvers, offshore accounts, and the creation of a separate business entity that was siphoning funds from his main job. Funds intended to secure a future with Olivia. The wax-sealed envelope contained documents related to this shell company, including incorporation papers and transaction logs, all bearing Mark's signature and intricate details of financial obfuscation. This was it. This was the concrete proof, the hidden compartment of his deceit, far more damaging than she had imagined. It wasn't just infidelity, it was premeditated financial ruin, a betrayal of their shared financial security and future. The journal entries painted a chilling portrait of a man systematically planning an escape, using their shared life as collateral. She carefully placed the journal and envelope back into the hidden compartment, securing the globe. She knew she couldn't confront him with this knowledge yet. She needed a plan, a strategy to protect Emily and herself from the financial fallout and the emotional devastation that was sure to follow. The rain continued to fall, a steady and somber rhythm that accompanied her newfound grim resolve. The hidden compartment had revealed not just a secret life, but a calculated plan to abandon his family, a truth far more terrifying than she had ever conceived. The scent of lemon polish and old paper, usually a comforting aroma in the wood's suburban home, now felt suffocating to Sky. It was a Tuesday morning in October, the kind where the sun fought a losing battle against an overcast sky, casting a pallid light on everything. For weeks, a gnawing unease had settled in Sky's gut, a discordant note in the symphony of her life. Mark, her husband of 15 years, had become a ghost in their own home, his presence marked by late nights at the office, hushed phone calls taken in the garage, and a growing emotional distance that felt like a chasm. Sky, a woman whose life had been meticulously built around her family, managing their finances with the same precision she applied to her children's schedules, her days a steady rhythm of school runs, grocery trips, and evenings spent with Emily and young Tommy, felt the foundations of her world begin to crack. Her hands, usually busy kneading dough or folding laundry, now trembled as she scrolled through Mark's phone, a desperate act, born of suspicion, that had curdled into dread. It had been a simple, thoughtless oversight on his part. His phone, left on the kitchen counter while he showered, unlocked. A notification pinged, a name she didn't recognize, Olivia, followed by a string of messages that made her stomach clench. "Can't wait for Friday," one read. "Same place, same time," another. Now the casual intimacy of the exchanges spoke volumes, each word a tiny shard of glass piercing her carefully constructed reality. Sky had always prided herself on her intuition, her ability to read the subtle shifts in Mark's moods, but this, this was an earthquake. She leaned against the cool granite countertop, the familiar coolness doing little to quell the heat flushing her cheeks. Tears welled, hot and stinging, blurring the mundane details of the kitchen, the cheerful fruit bowl, the magnetic chore chart tacked to the fridge, the framed family photo above the pantry. Her children, Emily, her bright 14-year-old navigating the turbulent waters of adolescence, and little Tommy, a whirlwind of 7-year-old energy, were her anchors. Their innocent faces in the photograph mocked her with their trust, their belief in a stable, no loving family unit that was, she now realized with a sickening lurch, a carefully constructed illusion. She reread the messages, her mind racing, piecing together the fragmented evidence, the business trips that had become more frequent, the unexplained credit card charges for hotel rooms and expensive restaurants she'd never seen, the way Mark would flinch when she asked about his day, his explanations growing vaguer, more evasive. It wasn't just a straying husband, it was a meticulously planned deception, a double life lived right under her nose. The betrayal wasn't just about infidelity, it was about the erosion of trust, the theft of shared history, the diminishment of her own worth. She felt a wave of nausea, the lemon-polished scent suddenly sickly sweet. Her life, so carefully curated, felt like a stage set, nay, and the audience had just been let in on the secret. She imagined Mark, his friendly face perhaps creased with concern for his children, but in his eyes a separate life, a different desire, a woman named Olivia. Who was she? A colleague? A friend? The possibilities swirled, each more painful than the last. Sky sank onto a kitchen stool, her legs suddenly weak. She looked at the clock on the microwave. 7:15 a.m. Soon, the house would stir. Emily would descend, bleary-eyed and demanding breakfast. Tommy would bound down the stairs, full of life. She had to maintain a facade, had to protect them from this immediate, raw pain. But how? How could she continue to live in this house, share this bed, pretend that everything was fine, when her reality had shattered into a million sharp pieces? The weight of it all was immense, but a crushing burden that threatened to suffocate her. She clasped her hands together, her knuckles white, trying to find a grip, any grip, in the swirling chaos of her emotions. The truth was out, ugly and undeniable, and it had landed like a bomb in the quiet sanctuary of her home. Her children's future, her own sense of self, her very identity as Mark Wood's wife. It had all been compromised. The path forward was obscured by a thick fog of pain and uncertainty, but one thing was clear. The life she knew was over. She had to find a way to navigate this shattered reality, not just for herself, but for the innocent lives that depended on her strength. The days that followed Sky's discovery bled into a blur of forced normalcy and simmering dread. Each interaction with Mark was a tightrope walk over an abyss of unspoken accusations, He would come home, his tie loosened, a weary but practiced smile on his face, asking about the children's day, about her day. His words like pebbles dropped into a vast silence. Sky responded with monosyllables, her eyes tracking his every movement, searching for any telltale sign, any flicker of guilt that he tried so hard to conceal. The messages on his phone had been a revelation, but the sheer weight of the sustained deception, the years of lies woven into the fabric of their shared life, was a burden she was still struggling to comprehend. She began to notice things she'd previously dismissed. The way he'd suddenly become secretive about his laptop, the vague late meetings that no longer seemed plausible, the distinct scent of unfamiliar perfume that sometimes clung to his suit jacket. Her meticulous financial records, usually a source of order and control, now revealed a disturbing pattern of unexplained expenditures. Discrete charges for boutique hotels in cities he claimed were just day trips for sales calls, elegant dinners for two at restaurants far too upscale for a solo business meal. She felt a chilling sense of violation, not just of her marriage, but of her intelligence. Had she been that blind? Had her comfortable life made her complacent? The thought was a bitter pill to swallow. She consulted with a family law attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Albright, in a sterile office downtown. The city sounds muted by soundproof glass, the legal jargon, discovery, alimony, child support, marital assets, felt alien and terrifying, a stark contrast to the domestic concerns that had occupied her life. Ms. Tay Albright patiently explained the process, the potential challenges, the importance of gathering evidence. Sky left the meeting with a binder full of documents and a head full of anxieties. The legal implications of Mark's infidelity, now a tangible, looming threat. Meanwhile, Emily, her 14-year-old daughter, became an increasingly sensitive barometer of the household's fractured atmosphere. Her once bright hazel eyes were now perpetually shadowed, her posture slumped, as if carrying an invisible weight. She'd stopped inviting friends over, spent more time sequestered in her room, the muffled sounds of music or crying sometimes drifting through the door. Sky saw her own pain reflected in her daughter's distress, a painful reminder of the innocent collateral damage of Mark's choices. Emily would watch her parents with a quiet, so unnerving intensity, her young mind trying to piece together the puzzle of their strained interactions, the hushed arguments that now seemed to erupt with unsettling frequency, the heavy silences that had replaced their usual family dinners. One evening, during a tense dinner where Mark was particularly evasive about a weekend away he'd planned, Emily pushed her food around her plate, her voice barely a whisper. "Is everything okay, Mom? You guys are fighting a lot." The innocent question hung in the air, a direct confrontation with the unspoken truth. Mark, ever the actor, offered a placid smile. "Just adult stuff, sweetie. Nothing for you to worry about." But Emily's gaze lingered on Sky, a silent plea for honesty in her mother's eyes. Sky's heart ached. She wanted to shield Emily, to tell her everything would be all right, but the words caught in her throat. The carefully constructed facade was not just cracking, it was beginning to crumble, and the debris threatened to bury them all. The ease of Mark's lies was unnerving. He navigated the treacherous waters of his deception with a skill that spoke of practice, a disturbing testament to the depth of his duplicity. He compartmentalized his life, ensuring that the Olivia world remained separate from the Woods world, a division that Sky's discovery had now violently breached. He was playing a dangerous game, one where the stakes were not just his reputation and financial security, but the emotional well-being of his children and the shattered trust of his wife. The pleasant, friendly face he presented to the world now seemed like a mask, and Sky was beginning to see the calculating eyes beneath. The air in the Woods' living room crackled with a tension so thick it felt tangible. It was a Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks after Sky had found the messages, and the pretense had become unbearable. She had summoned Mark home, her voice steady but firm, cutting through his usual excuses about urgent work commitments. Emily, sensing the shift, had retreated to her room, the door firmly closed, leaving Sky and Mark alone amidst the carefully curated comfort of their family home. Sky sat on the edge of the sofa, her posture rigid, a stark contrast to her usual relaxed demeanor. Her auburn hair was pulled back, revealing the determined set of her jaw. Her hands lay clasped in her lap, but the stillness betrayed the storm raging within. Mark stood near the fireplace, a picture of controlled unease. His friendly face was strained, his usual easy smile replaced by a tight-lipped grimace. He wore a navy blazer over a light blue button-down shirt, a stark reminder of the professional persona he so carefully maintained, a persona that now felt like a thin veneer over a hollow core. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, each tick a hammer blow to Sky's fraying nerves. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and steady, devoid of the raw emotion that had consumed her in the kitchen weeks ago. "Mark, we need to talk. No more lies, no more excuses. I know about Olivia." The words hung in the air, heavy and devastating. Mark flinched, his gaze snapping to hers, his eyes widening in a brief flash of panic before quickly regaining a semblance of composure. He ran a hand through his thinning brown hair, saw his carefully constructed calm beginning to fracture. "Sky, I don't know what you're talking about." It was a weak defense, and they both knew it. Sky's gaze was unwavering, her brown eyes now holding a steely resolve that he had rarely seen. "Don't you? The messages, Mark. The hotel bills? The business trips. I've seen it all." She gestured vaguely towards a stack of documents on the coffee table, the evidence she had meticulously gathered, legal proof of his betrayal. Mark's shoulders slumped infinitesimally, the fight draining from his posture. He walked over to the sofa and sat down, not next to her, but on the opposite end, creating a physical chasm that mirrored the emotional one between them. He stared at the floor, the professional facade finally crumbling. "It's complicated, Sky," he mumbled, his voice rough. "It wasn't supposed to happen." "But it did," Sky countered, her voice rising slightly, the pain beginning to surface. "And not just for a weekend, was it? It's been going on for 2 years, Mark. 2 years of you lying to me, to Emily, to Tommy. While I was here managing our lives, raising our children, you were, what? Living a fantasy?" The word fantasy seemed to strike a nerve. Mark looked up, his expression shifting from guilt to a defensive anger. "It was an escape, Sky. You think my life is so easy? The pressure, the endless demands." He trailed off, seeing the unimpressed, wounded look in her eyes. He had always used his career as an excuse, a shield against deeper emotional engagement, but she was no longer accepting it. "An escape? And where did your escape lead you?" "To Olivia Vance, wasn't it? Not the sophisticated marketing executive who makes you feel so alive?" Sky's voice dripped with a bitterness that surprised even herself. The name Olivia Vance had surfaced through a discreet private investigator she had hired after her initial discovery, a necessary, albeit agonizing, step to understand the full scope of the betrayal. Mark flinched again, confirming her knowledge. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. The carefully compartmentalized worlds had collided, and there was no going back. The weight of his actions, the undeniable truth of his infidelity, finally settled upon him. He looked at Sky, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years, and saw not just his wife, but a woman profoundly wounded, her trust shattered, her future uncertain. He saw the woman he had vowed to cherish, now standing on the precipice of leaving him. The thought of losing his family, his comfortable life, the social standing he so valued, sent a jolt of fear through him. "Sky, please," he began, his voice pleading. "We can work this out. I'll end it. I'll do anything. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose the children." His words were a desperate plea. A man cornered, finally facing the consequences. But Sky's gaze remained steady. The tears were still there, welling in her eyes, but they were tears of sorrow, not submission. She had loved Mark, had believed in their life together, but the foundation had been irrevocably broken. The man sitting before her was a stranger, a man capable of profound deceit. The path forward, she realized, was not about fixing the past, but about forging a new future, and one where her children could thrive and where she could reclaim her sense of self. The confrontation had brought clarity, a painful, sharp clarity. She stood up, her movements deliberate. "I don't know if we can work this out, Mark. I need time. I need to think about me." about the children. She walked towards the hallway, the documents still on the coffee table. Silent witnesses to the end of an era. The crossroads were clear. Mark's carefully constructed facade had shattered, and Sky Woods, the betrayed wife, was now standing at the beginning of her own, uncertain but resolute path. If you happened to be in her shoes, what would you have done better? Walk away or stay back and work it out? Let me know in the comments section, and don't forget to like this video, share, and subscribe to our channel. Keep an eye for more touching stories like this. I'll see you in the next one.